Thursday, August 13th, 8 a.m. right here on Jocks. Going to get to Cooper Petagna in a moment. Don't forget, you can listen online, jocksfm.com. The app is in your app store, iPhone, Android. You can download that for free. Watch us live on YouTube each and every day. And if you're rolling around your house, just tell your home smart speaker to enable the Jock skill.
Crocker Movers is a local company owned by an Iraq War veteran, Eric Crocker. Crocker believes in hiring movers you can trust to complete full background checks and run drug tests on every single employee. These are good guys. You can trust them in your home. Whether your whole home packed up and move, your company headquarters moved across country, or you just want them to come rearrange your living room, they got you covered. They also do deliveries for furniture that you've purchased and need to get to your home. So call or visit them online today for a free quote. The website's crockermovingservice.com. That's crockermovingservice.com. Support your veterans by choosing Crocker Moving Service for your next move.
Cooper Petagna of CBS Sports joining us now on the Higginbotham Hotline. His podcast, Coop's Corner, back up and running. And he starts it off with SEC contenders, which brings us first, Cooper, to a team that we've already had discussions about. Where should Texas A&M be when we begin to unfold the SEC as far as how you view them maybe compared to other teams at the top?
Yeah, I think they're in that category right with LSU. You know, if you think about the teams at the top of the SEC, Texas comes to mind, Georgia comes to mind. The other two that I actually like are Oklahoma and Ole Miss. And outside of that, I would say it's LSU, Texas A&M from a talent standpoint, and just what A&M lost, I think, on both sides of the line of scrimmage. I mean, you're talking about 7 guys on both sides of the line of scrimmage, 4 on the offensive line, another 3, including Cassius Howell on the front 7. So that's a lot on Marcel Reed. You also lose Colin Klein to Kansas State. Holloman Wiggins got to step up, and, you know, Mike Elko is manning that defense. So to me, there's just a little bit more questions for Texas A&M than there was last year. I think the schedule is a little bit tougher as well, but they're in that kind of outside looking in. But it wouldn't surprise me if they're able to string it together, make some noise, and maybe sneak in the college football playoffs.
So how would you assess those teams? You just said Texas and Georgia. You sounds like you're leaning towards LSU next in that vicinity. How do you kind of have 3 through 7, and in what order do you have them?
Yeah, so I mentioned Texas and Georgia really kind of as the 2 teams I feel the most convicted in the SEC. I would say the next 2 teams for me are Oklahoma and Ole Miss. And Oklahoma is a team that I've talked a lot about, and I think to me, the continuity that you get back on the offensive side of the football with John Mateer, Ben Arbuckle, that 3+ years together. Obviously, he was banged up last year. They have to play 3 young guys in Michael Fasusi and Ryan Foji and Eddie Pierre-Louis, and then they get a Marion Harris from Arkansas. They upgrade the receiver position with Parker Livingston and Trell Harris. The tight end room is going to be better. And that defense, as you guys know, is one of the best in the country, and I think probably one of the best 2 deeps in the country defensively as well. So I love Oklahoma. The schedule is very difficult, but the schedule was difficult last year, and everything that they went through, they feel battle-tested to me. Ole Miss, outside of the receiver position where they lose 4 to their top 5 guys, and, you know, there's plenty of talent there. Like, I like the hire at the OC with John David Baker. You got Trinidad Chambliss coming back, one of the best players in college football. I think the defense is really being slept on. Guys like Will Eccles, Cam Franklin, Centurion Perkins, they upgraded in a lot of areas, especially linebacker. I know that sounds crazy with T.J. Daugherty gone, but Luke Farrelly from Cal and Keaton Thomas from Baylor. Like, Ole Miss is one of those teams as well. LSU, I mentioned all the ingredients. You guys have documented them enough. I think Levitt, Kiffin, and what they have going on at the skill position, and then you get year 3 continuity. So I feel good about those 5 teams. I think 6 and 7 are a little bit of a question mark. Texas A&M comes to mind. Alabama's probably the other team, and I think Tennessee is a roster that's ready to compete. Outside of the quarterback position, we're just going to have to wait and see whether it's going to be George McIntyre or Faison Brandon. But outside of that, Tennessee's got some pieces to like.
What do you think is the holdup on Ole Miss? And I'm not saying for you, Cooper, but Greg and I talked about this on the show. For a lot of people, there's almost no discussion about what their ceiling may be as far as realistically what we think it could be. It sounds like what you think it could be. There's a lot of people that think they just kind of fall off the face of the earth here. Where do you see Ole Miss in this mix that we're discussing right now?
Yeah, I think one of those teams that's competing with LSU, you know, it's going to be one of the last at-large spots for the SEC. But, like, you know, I mentioned the quarterback, who I think is one of the best players. I didn't even mention Kwan Lacey. There's continuity in that system. A lot of people forget that John David Baker spent time in this system under Lane Kiffin and Charlie Weiss Jr. So, and there's certainly talent. I would say, for me, I think a lot of people discount Pete Golding, especially what he did in the last 2 games of the season. If you're just going to take a step back and look at it, they're going to say, oh, great season for Ole Miss. They ran the table. Great story. They went to the semifinals. I mean, it's a team that's one drive away from playing in the national championship. So all of these parts are back. And like I said, I mean, I really get excited defensively as well, because what they did on the back end, I mentioned the front 7, but they got guys that got skin in the game in the SEC. Sharif Denson comes over from Florida, Aguero from Georgia, Edwin Joseph from Florida State. Like they got players. And, they made a GM swap, LSU and Ole Miss, and Austin Thomas is one of the best in the business. He used to work at Ole Miss. They got to work. They hit the ground running. They have one of the best transfer classes in the country. So unless there's some steep fall off offensively that I don't think there's going to be, I think Ole Miss is going to be one of the most dangerous teams in the SEC, one of the most dangerous teams in the country.
How would you assess just kind of the back half of the league? Not necessarily the back half, but teams that are maybe not considered at or near the top, your Auburns, your Floridas, your teams that might be dangerous, your South Carolinas, but could rally up if the operation aligns as quickly as we think it could potentially align. So how would you kind of sort through the back half?
Yeah, it's a good question because, I've been studying the rest of the Power Four conferences, and you go through the SEC, and the first thing that kind of jumps through my mind is like, everybody's dangerous. Florida's dangerous to me. They have enough. I mean, the 2 coordinators that they bring over, Faulkner and Brad White, you plug in the quarterback, like one of the most dangerous receiving cores, I think, with Dallas Wilson, Vernell Brown, and Eric Singleton. But I think Florida's a team that jumps out. I mean, Auburn, you think about them, 10 guys offensively coming over from a top 5 offense at the group of 6 level with, Alex Golesh at South Florida, defensively one of the top run defensive units in the country. They keep pretty much a lot of that nucleus together. They lose a couple key guys in the front. But these are teams where you're just trying to figure out really kind of what's going to be the difference at the end of the day. But I would say the back half in terms of the teams that I feel good about, Missouri was a team, like on the first time through, that I was kind of like, oh, okay, there's some things here that I feel like Missouri is a little bit closer than I thought. I mentioned Tennessee. Vandy's kind of in for a retooling year, but still going to be competitive. And then I think Kentucky, it might not be year one, but Kentucky, I think, has the opportunity to maybe catch 1 or 2 teams by surprise. And I think Florida, if you're looking for that second-tier group, if there's going to be a team that emerges out of the second tier and maybe works themselves into a top 15, 20 team, to me, that would be Florida. Kind of excited about the pieces that they have.
What's your realistic expectation for Auburn this season? You brought them up, and you mentioned everything they're going to have offensively, but what do you anticipate them actually being start to finish this year?
Yeah, I think we'll find out more about Auburn week 3 through week 5. You got Florida, Vandy at home, and then you're at Tennessee. And then November is a little bit of a gauntlet, Georgia, LSU, and Ole Miss. I expect them to be feisty. I mean, you think about the games last year that they had, how many winnable games that Auburn had. I think Golesh is one of those guys, knows how to put his guys in a position to succeed. What I'm really interested in is they kind of had this influx of talent from the group of 6 level. And what is that going to look like? Is this going to be a team that can get over the hump and be a team that can win 7 or 8 games? But my expectation for them, I haven't gone game by game, but is to be, I would say, 1 or 2 games better than they were last year and more efficiently. You want to see this offense click. That's why you brought in Alex Golesh, spread you out, be able to take advantage of the skill spots. And what's it look like for Byron Brown? I mean, 3,000 yards passing, another 1,000 on the ground. There's been a lot of talk about what he looks like mechanically. Is it going to be effective with a step up to the next level? And I'm a little skeptical there, so we'll see. But all in all, you want to see a DNA starting to form for me with Auburn. I mean, this program has too much juice just in terms of their potential not to be closer to their ceiling. So swimming in the right direction, I would say if you can win 7 games with an 8 in the bowl game, that'd be ideal for Alex Golesh in year one, excuse me.
Lastly, I know it's a little bit off the radar, but I'm just fascinated by Vanderbilt still. Whether or not this group is bigger than one individual piece, I think a lot of people assume massive coming back to earth, which is fair. But what about Vanderbilt?
Yeah, I think you got to give Clark Lee and Barton Simmons a lot of credit, obviously with what they've done. And I think I mentioned continuity and lack of continuity, maybe for the reasons that I like certain teams and maybe I'm a little bit lower on the other. I mean, Vandy knows who they are. They play to that identity. They're not going to be headliners in terms of what they do in free agency, but they recruit to fit and they identify to fit. And they've done a lot of really good things. So I think Vandy is going to be one of those take a step back from a 10-win season. Yeah, absolutely, in my mind. But they're still going to be one of those teams that's going to be competitive that you're going to have to game plan for, and a team that I believe to be bowl eligible as well.
Cooper, we appreciate the time, man. Great stuff. Kind of looking at some of these teams that maybe people are a little bit too far ahead on, maybe too far behind on. Do you have a team that you think, not even of these playoff contenders we've been talking about, just top to bottom, that you think needs more run right now? More people need to be talking about.
Yeah, I would just say, a couple teams in general. One really sticks out to me in the Big 12. It's not sexy. I know we're in the SEC footprint, but like BYU is a team. You think about what they return offensively with Bachmeier and L.J. Martin. It's a two-loss team that only lost to Texas Tech twice. They bring over one of the leading tacklers in the country from Cal in Kedu Lave. That's a team with some teeth. I think Louisville with Lincoln Kindholz. They bring over Trey Richardson from Vandy. They've done some things that I really like. And, Penn State has a very opportunistic schedule. So those are three teams that really kind of stick out to me. And I don't know how you guys feel, but like the same way we're kind of talking about Ole Miss, there's that feeling with Indiana. They're sitting there kind of in the middle of the conversation at 6. It's higher than they've ever been. They're coming off a national championship, but it's like, are we still missing something with these guys? And they did a pretty good job this offseason elevating their roster as well.
Absolutely. Cooper, good stuff, man. Thanks. We'll do it again soon.
Thank you.
All right. Cooper Petagna joining us on the Higginbotham Hotline talking playoff contenders. You can find his work at CBS Sports. Coop's Corner podcast up now. You can go grab that wherever you get yours. We'll follow up with a little bit of what Cooper said there. Some potential playoff contenders, a couples that maybe won't be there, and one team that Greg and I both brought up a little bit earlier that I feel like needs some discussion in a different way. We'll do that next right here on Jocks. All right, welcome back in. McElroy and Kubick in the morning. Rece Davis coming up in 14 minutes. He's recently sat down with Joey McGuire, sat down with a couple different folks in Oxford, Mississippi, been to Bloomington as well to catch up with Kurt Cignetti, get his thoughts on a couple teams heading into this college football season. But Texas Tech was an interesting conversation we had earlier, G-Mac, and a lot of folks are going to have them in their preseason top 10, if not in the top 10, very near it. And it feels like there should be more questions with where Texas Tech is right now. Have they earned that cachet for so many people? Is that why you feel like a lot of folks maybe have them ranked ahead of where they realistically should be?
Well, because we have been conditioned to determine what the final record is and how we project them finishing from a win-loss total. And I think that's what leads to some teams being ranked where they rank. And that affects me. I don't know if it affects you. When I'm putting things together, I definitely take into account strength of schedule when putting guys together and teams together. The reality is, like, so in top 7, for example, like, those are probably the best teams, and play them against the hardest schedules and they'll figure it out, hopefully, at least for their sake. But also, I mean, that helps tell your story. If you have a gauntlet, then that's probably going to lead to you, quote unquote, underachieving. So you have to project and add that in a little bit.
I would think it's something that you look at for sure.
I have to. It's part of the story. It's part of the evaluation.
But I can't get past what this team has lost, and people just assume that it's going to be the same. And I know they went to the portal again. They had some portal success. Will Hammond will be a big part of this as well at quarterback. We both like his game. He is coming off an injury. Hasn't been the full-time starter, but I think he will be fine. The offensive line wasn't very good last year, very leaky. The offense is one that can manage around that with a lot of the quick game and what they're going to do there. They move the pocket well. That can help the quarterback. But to me, Greg, at some point in time, you got to have some semblance of a true run game.
Yeah.
If you're going to be able to win some of the games that they've lost in recent memory.
Fair. And I think running the football can be very helpful. Very, very helpful. And that would be massive. And I think that's probably the next step for them.
Trey White comes in. Bryce Butler comes in on defense. Adam Trick comes in on defense up front. Austin Romaine comes in up front on defense. I will say this, to be fair, a lot of Texas Tech, what they have done the last few years, I think they had better players up front defensively last year than they will this year, but has been by design, has been by scheme. They draw it up, and they cause a lot of that havoc on their own. It's a lot more fun when it's a lot better players and more talented players, but the defense not going to drop too far off just because the scheme, the design, how they run it, how they manage it is going to get a lot of those wins for them.
Yeah. And
as long as you're getting guys playing hard and knowing where to go.
But
like,
I anticipate great effort. I think Joey does a good job with those guys when it comes down to playing hard and playing with effort. And I think Shieldwood does a really good job on that side of the ball too. But also, who's the offense they're playing against that scares you? For real.
The Texas Tech offenses that would scare me, I think Houston can be a bit of a problem.
Really, though? I mean, like, I'm talking super dynamic, like massive problem. Maybe Oklahoma State.
Depending on what happens with West
Houston,
Virginia.
Maybe West. There's a few, but let's
Arizona
be real.
Could be.
Arizona, yeah, they got a very good and experienced quarterback that's got some talent and some skill, but
TCU.
Yeah, but TCU's pretty sporty, not bad. But the level of caliber and as far as the personnel across the board in the Big 12 is just not the same as what you might face in some other leagues. So Texas Tech, people are going to be high on Texas Tech. I understand that. I think Texas Tech's got a real chance to have a great year. But I also know that Texas Tech, if playing in another league, might not look the same as they look in the Big 12.
Fair.
And they beat every win they had last year was by 20-plus points, guys. Think about that. That is massive. Hey, you're not just beating teams. I mean, you are smoking teams in your own league. So you got to give a lot of credit to that. And then, sure enough, Oregon, first playoff game, did not score a point and looked terrible in the process.
Did not look good.
It's one thing not to score a point. It's another thing to look terrible in the process. It was not pretty. The farthest thing from it.
Let me ask you this. So Joey McGuire had a sit down with Brett McMurphy late last week, and he said, quote, we're embracing the villain role. We're the most hated team in college football, and I absolutely love it. Do you agree?
Yes.
I agree they're the most hated team in college football right now. Actually, you know what? Even that's going to be hard. It's going to be hard to get past Notre Dame, Alabama, Texas, USC. The teams have been winning for 100 years. I don't know if one off season of making people mad puts you ahead of them. Just
they made some people mad though.
For right now, yes, you can be that. Like you've taken a small step ahead of everybody for the short term, but grand scheme of things, we still can't put you there. The part that I wonder about, Greg, is I absolutely love it. And I just feel like it rolls into this. This is not personal towards him because I don't think it's his fault. Almost this character that he's being asked to play now. And this was everything that was going on with the Sorsby stuff. And now it's like, I don't feel like this is all him.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's his fault. I think he's been thrust into this situation. And what choice do they have right there than to play the villain role that we're the most hated team in college? They almost have to play that role.
Of course.
No other direction for them to go. And I just wonder, is any of this going to catch up to them in any sort of way? That it's not necessarily exactly who they are and what they are, but they've had to move into this. All right, all of a sudden we got to act like we're this or we're that. And it's not necessarily how the thing was built.
But they are kind of villains. I mean, nothing about what he said is inaccurate. You have no choice but to just embrace where you're at. And it's okay to be a villain. That's not going to kill you. I mean, there's nothing wrong with being universally despised by many, many people in the business, many people that follow the sport because of how things were handled with a gambling allegation. I mean, that's a big one, right? So that's going to create a lot of enemies. And then I also think the amount of money and resources that they have access to is some envy there, I think, for a lot of schools as well. So it just compounds the distaste for the Red Raiders. But I mean, Joey McGuire is like one of the most likable guys ever. Like, he's awesome. So I agree with you. It does feel a little strange because I could never root against Joey McGuire.
Right.
I couldn't. He's just a good dude. A high school coach, got a chance. Like, he's the American dream in many ways. So I love Joey McGuire and will continue to. And nothing about this whole situation has anything to do with him, in my opinion. It's just a difficult spot to be in. It really is. But he's not wrong. A lot of people rooting against him this year.
Absolutely. All right. Rece Davis had a chance to recently sit down with Joey McGuire. Also had a chance to sit down with Curt Cignetti, a couple other coaches across college football. We'll get his thoughts on a few of these teams heading into this season. First, Greg, tell our listeners about Bromberg's.
Well, Bromberg's been serving this community for almost 200 years and 190 years in business, and they continue to elevate that experience. I know they do for me every time I walk in the door. Natural diamond jewelry is there. It's beautiful. Those natural diamonds are just a wonderful story, and they help solidify very special things in your life. They're memories, they're mementos, and in some cases they'll stand the test of time on either the finger of the person you love or passed down for multiple generations. You can get that, of course, at Bromberg's. And their natural diamonds are really responsibly sourced. They actually help affect the livelihood of 10 million people worldwide. So go and shop responsibly at Bromberg's for a natural diamond. You can go in and have a great experience. You can get giftware, other jewelry as well, gold, silver, diamonds, you name it, they have it. So go see them in Mountain Brook or at the Summit. You can also shop online at brombergs.com.
What did Curt Cignetti share with Rece Davis about Kalen DeBoer? We'll discuss that next right here on Jocks. Welcome back in. McElroy and Kublik in the morning, 8:29, Thursday, August 13th, right here on Jocks. Listen online, jocksfm.com. You can tweet into the show at Mac and Cube. Call or text into the show, 205-834-9450. Had the Jocks kickoff party last night. A lot of fun. Appreciate everybody coming out at the Barons game. Great time. Great to catch up. Great to sort of put some faces with names that call into the show and be a part. And we had a couple of you last night say, man, I don't want to call in. And like, I'm afraid to ask that football question. Don't be afraid to be a part of the show. We encourage you guys to be a part of the show. Florida State has an interesting event coming up soon, Greg. They are going to retire a number of Sebastian Janikowski.
Heck yeah.
He's a kicker.
Correct.
Okay.
Not your average kicker, though.
In a lot of ways.
He's the only player that I think can comfortably chain smoke and still be an effective weapon.
One of the few. You
gotta
comparing him
respect
to, what was the replacements guy, Liam?
His name was not Liam, but yes, I know what you're talking about. Yes,
Okay.
very similar player. I love more than anything, like one of the best Bobby Bowden stories ever was, hey, coach, your team has curfew here in New Orleans, and your running back wasn't in at or your kicker was not in at curfew. Like Sebastian was knowingly like out on the strip at like 2 a.m. And Bobby Bowden responds in the way that only Bobby Bowden could, was saying, "Whoa, well, we have different rules for our Polish players." It's amazing. I mean, it's like, yeah, kicker doesn't matter. Sebastian will kick it through the uprights. Doesn't really matter what his pregame process is. We'll get it done. Gotta love that.
There you go. 17 players have their jerseys honored. I'm sorry, at Florida State. They don't reference it as retired. Deion Sanders, Jameis Winston, Peter Warrick, Derek Brooks, Chris Winkie, Charlie Ward, Fred Biletnikoff, Terrell Buckley, Warrick Dunn, Ron Sellers, Ron Simmons, Marvin Jones Sr., and Sebastian Janikowski will be added to that. So some people say great.
I
some
think
people
right,
say deserved.
In all seriousness, rightfully, dislike the position all you want. Sebastian Janikowski was legit.
I mean, he was big time.
He was legit.
Did some things that others couldn't do.
Yeah.
You can't deny that.
He kind of changed the game. Like, I got to give him some props.
Similar to Rece Davis, who does some things that others can't do from a broadcasting perspective. He joins us now on the Higginbotham Hotline. Reese, we were just talking Texas Tech and just some of the things that have happened, where people have them ranked heading into this season. You had a chance to actually go out and sit down and visit with parts of the team, visit with the head coach, Joey McGuire. How did you leave with your opinion changed one way or the other just about what Texas Tech may be this season?
I don't know that it was changed hugely, but I found a great deal of confidence that they're going to be really good. They felt like that, making the playoff last year, even though certainly the game against Oregon didn't go the way they had hoped, really legitimized them. Made them realize that they were, or made them not realize, but truly believe that they were a contender. So I think, I think there's a lot of confidence. There's a lot of belief in Will Hammond for all of the Brendan Sorsby drama that they brought upon themselves. I think it would be reasonable to say that maybe had Hammond not been hurt at all, that they still would have pursued a transfer quarterback, but maybe one not quite so expensive and maybe wouldn't have unfolded the way it did for Texas Tech. So, I think that, they believe they have arrived. They, I think they've been a little bit taken aback by the level of being the villain that they've encountered as a result of all the things that happened in the offseason. But, I think they're very, very confident in what they have in store for them.
I would imagine so. And I'm surprised that they're so surprised. Like, of course you're the villain.
In terms of, I wouldn't say, look, they knew, but the level got pretty intense.
Sure.
They were kind of in a tough. They had some missteps for sure in terms of the way it was handled, but I think they got in one of those positions where, if we don't defend our guy, who's going to?
Right.
And I think there was also a feeling. I think there was also a real feeling, Greg. They didn't expect that they would that they would win the initial court case.
Yeah.
They really kind of didn't expect that. That might have surprised them as much as anything. And then all of a sudden now your recourse is really limited because you've backed this court case that you kind of thought, well, we're probably not going to win this, and then you do. So I think that's kind of where they found themselves. And but it's settled a little bit. I think the right thing for them is not to have to deal with that. Was I think the right thing for the sport, and hopefully Brendan will get his act completely together. And I believe that the one thing that struck me just on that account is that one thing that people who knew him well said, look, this was a Sunday morning when I went out there to visit with them. And they said it's almost a 100% certainty that he's in church this morning. And this is not a new thing. This didn't just happen, since he ran afoul of the gambling things. He doesn't drink. He doesn't smoke. He's got a steady girlfriend to whom he's like everything, but he had this one problem, which is a significant one for sure. I'm not trying to downplay that, but that it was the one demon that got to him, and it kind of painted him in a light that as they got to know him, they saw the good qualities as well, instead of just the perception maybe that he's just out there a wild child running amok and gambling, and what else might he be up to? And according to them and those who knew him, the answer to that in terms of what else might he be up to is not much, other than football.
Sure. No, and that's totally understandable. As far as some of your other conversations, you sat down with Curt Cignetti. Everybody is fascinated by his growth and his processes. You had to sit down with them during the official visits. They were just terrific, by the way. You did an outstanding job. With the ones I've seen, I've just really enjoyed them. So what was it that you kind of took away from Curt Cignetti and something that maybe could be applied elsewhere with how he's approached the job at Indiana?
Doesn't waste any time. Says he doesn't like his time to be wasted, and therefore he doesn't waste other people's time. They're very efficient in what they do. Lets his coaches coach, makes his suggestions, has his non-negotiables and his beliefs, and has sort of approached this era of free agency is that if he has a question about a guy that they bring in, and the guy doesn't acclimate quickly enough, maybe after a run-in or two, he's gone. They haven't conceded in that area. They haven't overly compromised in that area. They get guys who are going to fit their belief system. And, they're sometimes you're going to, and look, with this speed dating thing, you're going to make some mistakes from time to time. They haven't yet, or at least not any that have been real public or overt. But, I think it's difficult and sort of inevitable that you're going to find a bad fit at some point on both sides. Maybe the coaches are a bad fit for the player too. I'm not just trying to blame it on the player, but I think that was the biggest thing, is that he had his belief system and what needs to be done. He's all football all the time, doesn't do anything else, but yet at the same time has that self-awareness that he's like that, and that as long as everybody gets their job done, we can can all go on about our lives, and we don't have to live in this building. They've upgraded everything. The one thing that struck me is there's such a contrast. The piece that's going to run tomorrow on official visits is the trip to Notre Dame and their new football facility, and it is off the charts. It's fantastic, and frankly, Notre Dame has needed it for a while. They've been pretty behind in that regard, and they're no longer behind. Indiana's has been upgraded significantly, but there's a pretty stark difference just in terms of size and scope and amenities and, the ornateness and all of those types of grandeur. There's a difference there, but it's almost like what Indiana has is what is all they need to be successful, and it's largely because he has insisted on some upgrades and some improvements and all those types of things, but he's not really into flash. He's totally into the substance of it. And I don't say that to cast aspersions at Notre Dame. Notre Dame's substantive program too, for sure, and it's an awesome building. I mean, I love going through it. But what Indiana has really fits who Curt is and the culture that they've established there.
Reese Davis of ESPN's College Game Day joining us on the Higginbotham Hotline. I want to go back to Cignetti, stay with that for just a moment. What did he share with you on that game against Alabama in the Rose Bowl? Coach DeBoer, I know he had some commentary on what that was like facing that offense.
I mean, he had great respect. I thought he was being very cognizant of how his words are perceived because they are the champions. I think he was completely sincere in his praise for Kalen as head coach and an offensive coach. But I think probably what you're talking about is he was talking about the fourth down play. And, the one I think both sides called timeout, as I recall. And, there are a lot of shifts and motions. And, in Alabama, tried something other than lining up and trying to run over somebody and get a yard, which they weren't very good at, as you guys know, last year. And he said that it's something that they had identified, that they, got a little tricky. But I think that he recognized that what happened in that game was that they imposed their will and then sort of were able to break their spirit when some things, kind of went Indiana's way. Plays that Indiana made. I mean, they made some spectacular plays. The touchdown throw that Mendoza made to Charlie Becker was just a brilliant play that we looked at. Just a big league throw. And they made those. He didn't cast any aspersions at Alabama at all, saying, they weren't in our league or anything like that. He kind of recognized the momentum of the game started going their way. They made plays, and that one comment that I've noticed in various quarters has gotten some attention was not offered in a look at these guys. They're
right.
all. They're all trickeration and no substance. He wasn't offering it that way at all. We were sitting in there. The whole context was, what does Curt Cignetti like to do? He likes to break down film. He likes to look at trends. What did he learn? How did that help Indiana in that spot? They knew Alabama was not totally likely or even likely at all to, just run power. In that situation, they knew that they were going to do something. And he even pointed out, it served them well a lot of times over the course of the season, but we had to be ready for it.
Well, as Greg brought up yesterday, we were having a discussion about it. You go back and look at a lot of the massive moments for Alabama last year when they needed a big play call, fourth down, third down, red zone. They got them the majority of the time. Won a lot of games because of them. So don't think that you could even find the proof that that would be true across the course of a season, even if it was in that game. You had a chance.
I might have seen on Greg's podcast the other night. I think that's where it was. Greg, did you put up a graphic that was it like 70% of a conversion rate or something like that on fourth down or something? I think I saw it when I was watching. Cole, can you believe I'm admitting that I watched his podcast on TV?
And thinking that Greg comes up with graphics for his podcast.
I watched your on campus, so we're just friends helping friends. That's all it is. That's what it is.
Reese, you had your chance to make your way over to Oxford, Mississippi also. You and I had a conversation about this a week or so ago. I don't want to say sleeping because it's not like people are not aware of what this team is or could be, but I do feel like people are not necessarily discussing them like they should be and what they're capable of this upcoming season. Visiting with Pete, Trinidad, anybody over there, do they feel any of that right now, do you believe, in Oxford, Mississippi?
As it turns out, just the way that day unfolded, I only visited with Trinidad that day. I did not get a chance to see Pete that day I was there. It was kind of a quick trip in and out. But yeah, I think just speaking to Trinidad, they're really ready for the season to go. And, he admitted you can't block out the noise about Lane coming and coming back. And, once that's complete, it'll probably dissipate a little bit, at least in some quarters. But, he said all the right things in terms of, we've got a big game in the opener. We have to play Louisville. If we're thinking about, Coach Kiffin coming back, then, that's not going to help us. But I think there's a lot of confidence there. And I think the one thing that struck me is that maybe it's because, look, he's a star quarterback and the fans are going to love him, and he fought to come back and got the injunction or the judge to rule in his favor to be able to come back. So they're going to love that no matter what, whether it's Lane Kiffin or Pete Golding as the coach. But I think there's been a little bit of an intensified love for Trinidad Chambliss because he didn't leave, because he stayed. I had the opportunity, I'm sure, to go with Lane to LSU had he chosen, and he instead stayed there and has made it home and embraced it. And man, have they embraced him. I'm telling you, some of the things that we put in the piece was only a fraction of what it was like to walk down the street and on the square with Trinidad Chambliss in Oxford. I mean, horns honking, people yelling out the window. I think I've told the story a couple of times. There was a lady who told him, she said, I was going to have lunch with my friend, and I thought that was going to be a highlight of my day. But instead, the highlight of my day is I just got to meet and get my picture taken with Trinidad Chambliss. I love you so much. And it was like from grandmother-age women to other students to high school people to frat bros, you name it. I mean, you name it. Whoever it was, they wanted just to say hello and how much they love him. And he handles it in just spectacular fashion. So gracious and kind, and a great smile, and obviously a great player. But I believe that they think that they're going to prove a lot on the field, and that they're going to prove to themselves that they're good enough, Golding's good enough, and that it wasn't all. Certainly Kiffin deserves a boatload of credit because he rejuvenated the whole thing, but that everything isn't dependent on, Lane weaving his magic on the sideline.
Reese, thank you for the time. Great stuff. Cool updates on some of the things you've been able to do in this offseason. Look forward to catching up with you again soon.
All right, guys. Have a great day.
There you go. Reese Davis, College Game Day, joining us on the Higginbotham Hotline, talking some college football heading into 2026. We'll do more of it next on Jocks. Great stuff from Reese Davis joining us on the Higginbotham Hotline, 8:48 Thursday. August 13th, right here on Jocks. Before we follow up with that, move on from that, and we want to get to your calls as well. 205-834-9450. Text into the show, 205-834-9450. Tweet in at Mac and Cube. Tell our listeners about Polar Bear Services.
Well, Polar Bear Services has been my go-to for a long time. I've always been very grateful to the experience I get when Wes and the guys come to the house. They come out, they take care of business. They help me with plumbing. They help me with electrical. They also have done a really good job of helping me out with my HVAC system. We know it's been hot. We know it's been brutal. It's been a very, very hard summer here in Alabama. So to know that your system's running smoothly is huge. And to know that if something went wrong, get taken care of immediately, thanks to your friends at Polar Bear Services. So remember, if you have a problem with your electrical, plumbing, heat, or air, just pick up the phone and call the Bear. It's 205-497-BEAR. It's 497-BEAR.
Your thoughts on the Kurt Cignetti, Kalen DeBoer? According to Nick Kelly, the quote goes, Coach DeBoer, he's a great offensive coach, has a great football coach, got a lot of respect for him, but in short yardage, they have a tendency to get a little tricky and cute sometimes. I mean, you've got to be ready for it, and they've had a lot of big plays doing that through the years. And last year, so we were ready for those type of things.
Yeah. And I can think back even to his time at Washington. Like there was a very critical 4th and 1. Gotta have it situation. I want to say it was the Apple Cup. Gotta have it situation. They went with a reverse and handed it off, pitched it on a reverse. They gained like 30 yards from it. I believe it was Roma Dunze who actually got the reverse and the big play. So that is definitely a tendency, not a bad one. You would love to have that trickery and also, hey, we're going to dent your defensive line. Doing both in short yardage would be awesome.
Right.
So hopefully that's a point of emphasis this year so you don't have to be as tricky and you can just call it and run it because you trust your offensive line and running backs enough to get that yardage.
Now, I imagine this is not too dissimilar from a lot of teams in college football, but if you go back last year, Alabama, in wins, third down conversion rate, 45.95, so 46%.
Pretty sporty.
In losses, 30.91.
Yeah.
That's a pretty big dip. And like I said, I imagine that's not totally different for a lot of teams.
No.
If we were to take a couple other teams that were in the playoffs in contention for national title, I don't think that would be too different. Georgia, by the way, went from 46% to 24%.
Yeah.
So that's as egregious, if not more, when you're talking about where you're going to be on third down, in wins, on third down, in losses. Let's take Ole Miss. 44% to 37%, so not near as big of a dip. It's pretty impressive.
Very.
With what Ole Miss was able to do. But
they're always good on third down, too.
But as you discussed, just having those creative calls, it was something last night, the Jocks kickoff party, that a lot of our listeners were not there to be able to hear. You brought up some great points about some critical calls for Alabama, specifically last season. And we've seen them the last 2 seasons. LSU, both times, really. Some big calls against Georgia last year. Big call against South Carolina last year. I mean, there were multiple games where Oklahoma kind of got the game put out of reach there in Norman in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Those big calls have come more times than they haven't. So while it may be applicable for that one game, that looks like more of a one-off for Kalen DeBoer, Ryan Grubb and company.
Well, that's the thing that I always go back to. Like, look at Bama's games last year. How often did a specific coaching decision made in that game lead to giving Alabama a much better chance of winning the game? There were and that's whether it's, hey, we're going to go for it here. Let's go. Get your 4th down calls ready. We're going. And I can think of Missouri. They had 2 4th down conversions that ultimately ended up winning the game. I can think about a 4th down conversion, I believe, against Georgia that led to them winning the game, or a great play on defense that led to them winning the game, just coaching. I also look, too, at a 4th down play against LSU, 4th down play against Oklahoma in the playoff game, 4th down play against Auburn. I mean, those are like 5 or 6 critical downs. South Carolina, there was a 4th down play that was run that won the game, that was run and called and trusted and executed. That's a direct reflection of coaching to me. Like, 4th down execution is the ultimate differentiator in the modern era in college football. And if your team's elite on 4th down, that is a reflection on quality coaching. And it didn't work 100% of the time. They went for it on fourth down with Jeremy Bernard on a jet sweep or whatever it was against Indiana or a Wildcat or whatnot. So it didn't bat 1,000. But there are a bunch of games in which the win probability was leaning 50-50. And because of a call that Kalen DeBoer made, it spun it to 80-20 in favor of Bama. So you got to give credit where credit is due there as well.
Absolutely. And there may be a time or two that's going to work against you, but when it keeps you in games, goes and wins games as many times as we have seen it for Alabama, this offense, this staff, I don't think you can utilize what Cignetti said and said that that's the norm. If anything, I would think that would probably be the opposite of that when you're talking about where this team has been and where they've been mainly on those conversion downs. I mean, that would be totally different. Would you agree?
I would agree with that. I would also say, too, like, throwing the ball on fourth down is not awesome. Like, let's just be real. Like, I mean, I don't love it. If it's 4th and 7, sure.
I was going to say, how many yards do we need?
It's 4th and 2, and you feel like you got to throw it. That stinks. You know what I mean? So hopefully, like we talked about earlier, 4th and 1, getting cute, getting tricky. How about O-line just move the pile? Like, how about a 220-pound running back just throw your body in there and push the pile? Like, that's what I think everyone would love. It's hard to get them, but I think everyone would love to see that. That'd be the next step. So you got all that creativity. That's awesome. But you'd also like to bludgeon the front when you can. So I'm not saying, like, what I think is hilarious, like, oh, we want murder ball. We get that. How often do you hear that? We want murder ball. We want murder ball.
Yeah, a lot.
That's cool. How'd it work for LSU under Les Miles? Murder ball worked very well. We can run it against anybody. Nope. No, you can't.
You couldn't.
Leonard Fournette went 19 for 32 in 2015. Like, no, you can't. So I think the murder ball thing is a bit of an archaic way of thinking, but it'd be nice every once in a while if when they know you're running it, you can still run it. That'd be huge. I'm not saying you need to break a huge one, but when the run is being expected and they're stacking the box, you could still get that yard would be enormous.
Unfortunately, I don't think we have enough time to get to Golden Domer right here.
Or maybe it's the perfect amount of time to get to Golden Domer right here.
Domer, 20 seconds.
5
What's on
seconds.
your mind?
20 seconds. 20 seconds. I don't even get my top of the morning in, man. But, look, 20 seconds. It was good seeing everybody last night. Good seeing the callers. I really appreciate what y'all do, man. Y'all bring a lot to this. You people, like, what y'all do is actually what makes college football fun. If it wasn't for the people, it wouldn't even be fun to watch the games for me. I enjoy the interactions. I mean, I love ball, but y'all really would take it over the top.
That's it?
We love you, Domer.
Wow.